Welcome into CBS Sports HQ. Jenny Dell here. And yes, the NFL playoffs are in full swing, but so is the coaching carousel. Now, we're halfway through January. There's already been one hire, the Patriots, bringing in Mike Vrabel to replace Rod Mayo. We currently have 6 openings. So the Cowboys, the Raiders, the Jags, the Bears, the Saints, and the Jets. Now, coaches and coordinators are in that interview process right now, and yet there is one name in question still. So news broke this morning that North Carolina head coach Bill Belichick has still not signed the contract to coach the Tar Heels. Now that speculation is leading to maybe some potential interest in coaching in the NFL. Well, not so fast. So UNC general manager Michael Lombardi took to social media to push back, and this is what he said. Bill is recruiting in D.C. today and Baltimore tomorrow. His focus is on North Carolina football, hiring staff members and developing the team. The NFL isn't an option, so please stop making it one. Thank you. Well, thankfully, we have our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, to guide us through this. Now, the key to this whole situation, JJ, while Belichick has a proposal of contract terms and conditions in place, that document states it's not a binding agreement. So, JJ, tell us what that means as far as Belichick and what it relates to within the NFL.
So what we have here is the last couple of weeks, more than a month, we've been talking about Bill Belichick and his $10 million buyout, that if he were to leave North Carolina before June the 1st, 2025, he would owe North Carolina $10 million, or someone on his behalf would owe North Carolina $10 million. After that date, it goes down to $1 million. Well, if you look at it, there is no signed contract. Now, that is not unusual in college sports. A lot of times you sign a proposal sheet and you say, hey, we're going to work toward the fully formed contract. It's going to be dozens of pages. It'll take some time, but we agree that you're the coach and we're moving forward. And obviously Bill Belichick has operated as such, and obviously we are believing that that is the case. And we have seen and heard from Michael Lombardi. I wrote in my piece about how he has said that he and Bill are fully 1,000% committed to North Carolina. He again reiterates that in his post today. I have no issue whatsoever with that. But what you have in this term sheet, in the second sentence, it literally states this does not constitute a binding agreement. And so because of that, according to sources that I speak to, there is no agreement. There is no contract. And so because of that, the question is now raised that if Bill Belichick does want to bolt from Carolina and go to the NFL, if the NFL and a team becomes an option, would that $10 million buyout be required? And that is a legal question that, frankly, I am not equipped to answer, and certainly would be held up among the courts.
JJ, we are so grateful that you're here, and let's just move forward. And if Belichick is a candidate for any of these current NFL openings, you just said you don't know exactly what it would take to make that happen, but where, if he does end up in the NFL, where would you see him going and fitting in?
Well, Jenny, the longer this goes, let's be honest, the more likely it is that Bill Belichick is not going to get an NFL head coaching job. We know that he poked around with the 3 openings before he ultimately signed with UNC. At the time, it was the Bears, the Saints, and the New York Jets, a place that no one thought he could even go. But then he personally called the Jets himself. And so then he ultimately signed with North Carolina. Since then, there have been some openings. We know the Patriots, that was never an option, but they went with Mike Vrabel. We have the Raiders, and Tom Brady, his old quarterback, is certainly running things there. You continue on, and you look at the Jaguars, which a lot of people believe to be the best job available out there. And now you have the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones, who at this moment, they have 3 known interview requests: former Jets head coach Robert Saleh, former Vikings head coach Leslie Frazier, and current Eagles offensive coordinator and former Dallas offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. And so could Belichick generate some interest at any of these stops? Sure, it is within the realm of possibility. Also, interestingly enough, because there is no signed contract, when you look at the NFL's anti-tampering policy, it stipulates if NFL teams want to talk with college coaches who are under contract, they have to request permission from those schools. But as we have established, There is no contract between Bill Belichick and UNC. And so if a team wants to talk with Bill Belichick about any opening, it can be very reasonably argued that they don't have to go through UNC to request permission.
Well, JJ, you might not be a lawyer, but we are so grateful that you can break this all down for us here on CBS Sports HQ. We appreciate you, JJ, and we'll definitely keep an eye on all of it. Now, for more NFL news, as we talk about this coaching carousel, the latest when it comes to Bill Belichick, we're going to head over to our desk now and my co-host, Haley Sutton.
Jenny, thank you so much. You just saw it there, all the coaching vacancies. There's plenty more to discuss as we continue our conversation with two of our analysts, Bryant McFadden and Pete Prisco. Guys, we're going to pick it up right there with the Belichick conversation. And one of the things that I want to emphasize here, too, and get both of your opinions on is that buyout clause, right? It's $10 million until June 1st. Then that buyout for Bill Belichick drops down to $1 million. So, Pete, I'll come to you first here. What does this all say about the future of Bill Belichick? Is he coaching in college? Is he coming back to the NFL?
No, he's coaching in college, and I think, he keeps saying that, his people keep saying that, and obviously you're looking to get players, and you're on the recruiting trail, so it matters if the perception is he's going to be there. But I think he is going to be there. Look at the NFL jobs. Who's going to hire Bill Belichick right now? And I ask that not because he wasn't the greatest coach, maybe the greatest coach of all time, but because of the track record as a general manager. And go back to, okay, you mentioned Jacksonville. Jacksonville's looking for an offensive coach who can develop their quarterback. So it's not going to work there. You go to Dallas. Can you imagine Jerry Jones and Bill Belichick working together?
No,
I can't.
Pete, I can't.
So I don't think it works there. No, it's not going to work there. And then you go, to the Raiders. Okay, Tom Brady knows them. They didn't exactly have a warm and fuzzy relationship by the time that relationship ended. So I don't think there's a job for him in the NFL. Maybe he hasn't signed his contract or whatever the heck they do sign in college, because not all coaches sign their contracts in college. But I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's going to be the head coach at North Carolina.
Yeah, Pete, I agree with you. I do believe he will be the head coach for North Carolina. But to Haley's point, when you look at the cheap buyout and then also hearing that he's yet to sign his contract, that leads to speculations. Because when you look at college coaches, usually they have a nice buyout to kind of give them a sense of protection, just in case anything happens. You don't usually see college coaches have the type of buyout that Bill Belichick has, and that makes us wonder if there was another opportunity. It makes it feasible for that said team or organization to be able to pay that buyout because it's not a hefty price, and why hasn't he signed the contract yet? Those are things that really lead to these speculations about, is he flirting with the idea of coming back to the National Football League with so many jobs available? But you look at the timing as well, Pete. I think that makes me believe that he will stay at North Carolina, because the timing right now, when you look at NFL jobs, you're trying to go ahead and do your due diligence from either side, for the potential head coach or for the organization that would love to understand and know what this team would look like with the guy they're interviewing. We have yet to hear anything in terms of a team might want to talk, better yet, interview Bill Belichick, just have a conversation with him to kind of gauge his interest. We have yet to hear that, and if it has happened, no question has been behind closed doors. But outside of that, I do believe he's set up to stay with North Carolina. But I just wish he would sign the contract, because if he signs the contract, some of these speculations we wouldn't be talking about. But with him not signing it, it gives us that window of hope to have these conversations about what if.
And let's be real, guys. Like, this is Bill Belichick we're talking about. I mean, I'm not surprised that if there's a glimmer of hope there, that someone's trying to take advantage. So we will continue to monitor that as well. We saw that he is allegedly out on the recruiting trail. So we'll, of course, be on Belichick watch going forward. Let's talk about my Cowboys, though, guys, because this has become such a mess. We got rid of Mike McCarthy, and now we're trying to figure out who's going to be the head coach. To JJ's point earlier, the list has become Deion Sanders, Kellen Moore, and Leslie Frazier. Pete, I'm not surprised Kellen Moore's name is in the mix. I was there when he was the offensive coordinator. I know he has a great relationship with Jerry. But when you look at the Cowboys and what kind of coach they need, what does that position look like? And do any of these guys fit that mold?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily what they need. It's what Jerry wants. And, you know, does Jerry want to pay the buyout to go get Deion Sanders? I mean, historically, he's not one of those guys that does that. I mean, he doesn't like paying coaches when they're not coaching either. And, you know, everybody said, well, he's got so much money. Well, that's how rich people get richer. They don't do stupid things. And so I think from that standpoint, unless he really wants Deion Sanders, I don't think he's going to go pay the buyout. So now you have to start looking elsewhere. And Kellen Moore's a guy that Jerry Jones could probably bring in and ultimately be over top of him and control him like he always does. And so I think from that standpoint, it makes sense. He knows the offense. He knows the quarterback very well, and that quarterback has to be healthy and on the field making plays. So I think Kellen Moore's a guy you definitely would take a long, hard look at if you're Jerry Jones and you're not going to go for the big splash.
My thing is this about Kellen Moore, right? If you fire, and you being Jerry Jones, you were okay in firing Kellen Moore because he wasn't good enough to be your offensive coordinator, why do you think he would be good enough to be a head coach for your team? I never seen anything like that. It's almost like you're driving backwards because, remember, they let him go. They let him go because they felt like he was keeping the offense back. He was holding the offense back. He was holding Dak Prescott back. Mike McCarthy wanted to call plays because he was not satisfied with the job that Kellen Moore was doing. And, Jerry, you were a part of that. You okayed that move. So why would you want to bring him in to be the overseer of everything? It doesn't make any sense. But I think the only thing that justifies this potential interview is, to your point, if you bring in Kellen Moore, Pete, Jerry has an opportunity to kind of control everything because Kellen Moore is a guy who just will love the opportunity to be a head coach. But think about this. Are there any other teams legit thinking about Kellen Moore to be their head coach when you look at the vacancies that are available? Nope. But this would be a sole move for Jerry to be like, yo, Kellen, you're going to be our guy, but I'm going to have my hand all involved in everything. And guess what? Kellen does not have the leverage to say, no, I'm not doing that. Well, if you don't want to do it, go back to being a coordinator because there's no other opportunity for you to be a head coach. That's the only thing that I see in justifying potentially considering Kellen Moore to be the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys.
It is always messy with America's team. If I learned anything, supporting them, working for them, it is never simple. Let's talk about something, B-Mac, that might be a little bit more simple here. Your Steelers and Mike Tomlin. This has kind of been the surprise of the offseason, or I guess we're still in the season, but regardless, this has been the surprise for me, is the talks of Mike Tomlin potentially not being the coach of the Steelers. Obviously, B-Mac, the season didn't end the way they wanted to. He just signed that extension at the beginning of the season. What do you make of his comments saying, I don't want to be traded, leave me here? You know, just what's going on in Pittsburgh right now?
Well, I think he understands the not rumors, but the conversations that people are having outside of the building in terms of the media and fans. You know, some fans in Pittsburgh would love to see Mike Tomlin move on. You have a lot of fans who would love to keep him in place. You have some fans from other organizations that would love for their team to try to make a play for Mike Tomlin. And all he did was basically silence all of those rumors. He wants to remain in Pittsburgh. He does not have a desire to coach anywhere else. So he made it known. But also, too, when you talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, the standard has not been the standard. That's something that Mike Tomlin says year in and year out, week in and week out, month in and month out. The standard is the standard. When you go to Pittsburgh, the standard is competing for championships. When you go to Pittsburgh, the standard is going into the playoffs and making noise in the playoffs. They have not done that as of late. So something has to be done. And it starts with the head coach. Mike Tomlin is a very, very respected head coach. He knows ball in and out. But sometimes he allows mediocrity to be the main vocal point for their organization. If you look at what he's done in years past, he held on to Matt Canada way too long. Matt Canada should have been gone. But because of the loyalty, in which I respect, but at some point in time, confrontation is something that a head coach has to address. He held on to Matt Canada too long. He held on to Kenny Pickett too long. Kenny Pickett should have been on the sideline long earlier than what happened with that injury when Mason Rudolph jumped into the lineup. So these are things that have really kept the program, the organization, back a little bit from doing things that they need to do. And hopefully these things are addressed moving forward, because I'm one that believes that Mike Tomlin is good enough to be the head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I also, too, must admit the standard has not been the standard in years past from what we've seen.
So, Pete, we heard from B-Mac's perspective there, a former player who has been in that organization, has worked with Mike Tomlin. From your perspective, what needs to change, because they haven't had playoff success like he had early on, just 3 playoff wins. The last time was in 2016. What's got to change in Pittsburgh?
Well, they got to get with the offensive times first and foremost, and by that, first you have to start by finding a quarterback. I mean, you know, Mike Tomlin was a great coach when he had Ben Roethlisberger playing quarterback, and that's the biggest difference. They don't have quarterbacks, and it's been a problem. So they have to address that. You can't just stopgap that thing to death. And in fairness to them, they drafted Kenny Pickett the first round. He didn't work out. So you have to keep addressing the quarterback position. But more than that, you know, the old Steeler way was play great defense and run the ball and play great defense. You can do that provided your quarterback is capable of throwing it when he needs to throw it. And they weren't capable of doing that this year. So I think he needs to get with the times. And look, Mike Tomlin's still a great coach. Those teams have overachieved. When you look at the Steelers team on paper and on the surface and go through it, they weren't very good. I mean, they're not a very good team, and yet he somehow got them to the playoffs. So I think he's almost a victim of his own circumstances. He does such a great job coaching underachieving teams to get to X point that when they do get to the playoffs, they're not good enough. And I think that's why people are starting to come down on Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, I just remember at the beginning of the season when the Russell Wilson thing was happening and nobody believed in the Steelers, and yet they made it to the postseason. So all good stuff to remember, but we'll see how it all shakes out. Our Pete Prisco and Bryant McFadden helping us break down some of the big NFL coaching headlines. A reminder, it is all going down Sunday at 6:30 on CBS. The Ravens and the Bills squaring off for a shot in the AFC Championship game.